Hi guys, I'm Anita and I'm back with another video, and today it's time for a wrap up again. This time I'm going to be focusing on books 26 to 30, and yeah, let's just get into the next 5 books. The 26th book that I read this year was Omens by Kelly Armstrong, the first book to her Canesville series. This is a series that this is the book that follows this girl called Olivia who's grown up in this high society where her mother and father were pretty wealthy, and she is engaged to be married to the eligible bachelor of the US currently. One day she finds out that she's actually adopted and that her real parents are serial killers and convicted serial killers. Because this becomes a big deal with the press, she ends up fleeing from her life and hiding herself in this small town of Canesville. Canesville turns out to be the place where her birth parents actually grew up, well, at least they settled down there and lived, and she lived her first 4 years of her life there. And she doesn't remember anything from that time, but things start to come together when she gets there. And then her birth mother wants her to try and prove their innocence, that they're not actually the murderers, and she don't know if they have to believe this or if it's actually just something they want her to try to find so that they can be released from prison, even though they are the murderers. And so that sort of becomes the plot of this book, that for her to sort of find these clues and all of that. And she sort of teams up with a lawyer who's also not someone you're not sure if you want to trust. And this book started out really interesting. I thought that the beginning of the book that it was really gripping, and I thought it was really interesting. But for some reason, when I was like 30% through, it just stagnated. That nothing really new. It was sort of the same repetitive things that she went through. I don't think that there was a lot of development there. The last half of the book, I always felt like it was a chore to pick it up, and suddenly I had to read a lot of the book to actually finish it before it was expiring from my Overdrive account. And so I ended up giving this a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was quite disappointing, since I was really looking forward to a great read by Kelly Armstrong, who I've read a lot of books before from, and I really enjoyed them. This is not a series that I'll be continuing, because I don't really connected with the main character or any of the characters in this series so far. The 27th book that I read this year was Till Death by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is a standalone novel that follows this girl called Sasha, who is the only survivor of this serial killer called the Groom. And she has been left this small town that she lived in to sort of get away from all of the talk about the town, about how she was, what she went through and all of that, and the Groom, who is supposed to be dead and all of that. So she flees because she doesn't really want all of the hype surrounding her. And after some years living away from that, she decides to go back home to the hometown to sort of help her mother out with her inn, so that she one day can take over the inn, which has been the plan from the beginning, and also her personal dream. As soon as you get back, creepy things start to happen again, and it seems as though something is happening again that's very similar to what the Groom did. And it just so starts to happen when she gets back into town, so she's not sure what to make of that. The villain sort of leaves messages and stuff around. Then she also gets back her old love interest, Cole, who she was in a relationship before she was abducted by the Groom, comes back into her life, and they sort of restart their relationships. And he's also a police investigator, so he has some connections and try to find out things about what's going on, about all of these things that happens in this town when she got back. And yeah, so there's those two aspects of the story, and overall, I enjoyed it. I think Jennifer L. Armentrout writes super interesting books. I think she has a lot of great depths into a lot of her books, and I think that the way she wrote Sasha's personality, what she was going through with everything that had happened to her, now that everything was happening again, how she was sort of dealing with those things. I thought they were really pretty well done. The thing that I hated the most about this book was that I figured out who did it way before it was revealed, and that was a little annoying. I was hoping I wasn't right, but yeah, that let down a little bit, and I wasn't completely hooked to the romance in this book. Even though it wasn't really insta lobby because they had been together before, it developed really quickly. And since she's been going through all of these things, I thought it was a little weird that she was just ready to get back into a serious relationship with him right from the beginning. But apart from that, I actually really enjoyed it, and so I ended up giving it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but this is probably my least favorite Jennifer L. Armentrout book that I've read so far. The 28th book that I read and finished was Night Fox Gambit by Yoon-Ha Lee. This is one of the shortlisted books in the adult category for the BookTube SFF Awards, and honestly I was confused for the whole deal. I am not even sure exactly what happened. It is something to do with this girl called Cheris who has to lead this new mission, and she has to succeed, otherwise she'll probably be let off this thing. That's what I gather. And she has to team up with this immortal being called Shadeo, I think, isn't it his name? And he's sort of interesting. You don't really know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. He has definitely done a lot of horrible things because he's been killing a lot of people, and we don't really know if they were for the greater good or if it was for his own enjoyment or whatever. You don't really know if you should trust him, but I think I don't exactly know where the plot went and how that all happened, but I feel like the characters were interesting at times. I definitely felt like I could get some snippets about them a couple of times, and especially Shadeo, I thought he was really interesting towards the end. But because I was so confused over it all, I'm landing on a 2.5 to a 3 stars because yeah, I'm not sure what actually happened, and I probably shouldn't even give it this higher rating, but I thought the characters were interesting at times, and yeah, but I'm not sure I'll be reading on in this series because this is not the sort of sci-fi style that I can get into. I think that I might have been gone into the deep end where sci-fi concerns. I haven't read a lot of sci-fi, and maybe this is why I have such a difficult time with this. So maybe I should be focusing on some other books, and if you have some recommendations about sci-fi that you think I'll enjoy, where maybe it's character driven but also where it's not like super confusing, then please leave some recommendations in the comments down below, because I'd like to check out some more. The next thing that I read this year was Monstrous Volume 1 by Marjorie M. Liu and Sana Takeda. The first volume is called The Awakening, or just Awakening, and this follows a girl who is struggling a lot in this time of a war that's going on, and she's sacrificing herself in order to get some more answers to some things, and she has sort of a weird link to this monster that sort of lives inside of her, and it makes her eat people. And then we follow some other characters as well. I thought that this volume was pretty difficult to get into story-wise. There was a lot of things that are difficult to understand in the beginning, I felt like, but I really thought the characters were really, really interesting, and they got a lot more interesting during the book. And there's cats who can talk and sort of communicate with these people, and there are sort of half-breeds between different animals and humans, and humans who has some sort of psychic or powerful abilities, and then there are normal human beings. But the majority of the people we meet in here have some sort of extra power. I loved the art style. I think the art style is really, really gorgeous. It's really easy paneling as well, big panels, and I like the art style a lot. I think that was really, really beautiful, and that lit for me the story a lot more, because I felt like the storyline itself was probably around a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but the art style is definitely 5-star worthy, so I end up on a 4 stars for this volume, and I'm interested in seeing where this is gonna go. I have an annoying hair, but I really enjoyed this graphic novel, and I'm looking forward to see where this graphic novel series will go in the future. I recommend this if you're into fantasy graphic novels. The 30th thing that I read this year was Heartbitten by Chloe Neal. This is the 4th book in the Chicagoland Vampire series. This series follows this girl called Merritt, who's involuntarily become a vampire and is part of this vampire house in Chicago called the Cadogan House. The Cadogan House is led by this guy called Ethan, who is sort of the leader and all of that of that house. The Cadogan House is one of the most powerful in this city, there are 2 more pretty big houses as well that has a lot of things to say. But yeah, the story continues with Merritt as she's trying to get the hang of things in the Cadogan House. Still things are happening in Chicago that puts a threat to the houses around Chicago, especially Cadogan House. There's sort of a mysterious drug that's being sort of dealt around the city to vampires that makes the vampires seem a lot more vicious than they usually are. This sort of enhances the evilness in them. It makes the vampires act out a lot more rashly than they usually do. And so this has made a lot of people angry with the vampires, and especially the mayor has put a threat to the houses that they have to stop these things before things get out of hand. And then Merritt takes it up as her own mission to sort of figure things out, and she's seeking help from her grandfather, who is sort of leading the underground police department that takes care of all of these occult things. As usual, I really love the characters. I think Merritt is a great main character to follow. She's a really strong heroine, and I feel like her interactions with a different group of people is super interesting to follow. I love her relationship with her friend Mallory. They have a really, really great friendship together, and they can always depend on the other friend to what they're doing. And I love the way the sort of communication she has with her grandfather and that team, and I also like how she's so slowly forming bigger and better friendships with the Cadogan vampires, because they're obviously going to be a big part of her life now, and especially the security team with Luke and Lindsay and all of those people. I really like their interactions, and least of all Ethan, who is the leader of the house. And this book ends with a major cliffhanger, because it's definitely a daring thing to do, and I sort of respect it that she dares to do this, the author, but I hated it. I hated the ending, and I can't decide how much I'm gonna have to let that affect the overall story. I was thinking, yeah, it's a good story, it's okay, it's not the best, but I'm enjoying it. I think it's a 3.5. Then things happen. It was bumping a little bit up to 4 stars maybe, but then this thing happened and bam, we're back down on 3.5. That's where I've decided to put the rating, but I'm still not sure about that. But I hated that ending, and I don't have time to read book 5 right now, so that's annoying. Really, really annoying. And yeah, but this completes the next 5 books in my reading for this year. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of the books and what you thought of them, if you agree with my opinions, and also if you don't. And also let me know what you've been reading lately, and if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video very, very soon. Goodbye!